Hello, beautiful and amazing people. Welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar. I'm super excited that you guys are here. Thank you so much for joining me today. So I see we have a lot of lovely people in the house. If you guys are able to come on camera, I would really appreciate that. So tonight, what I'm going to be teaching you guys is how to actually set up a trust. So I'm going to show you the different steps that you need to take in order to create a trust so that you guys can build wealth the right way, okay? So my name is Christina Yvette. I own a brand called 7 Ways to Wealth, where we teach people how to protect their assets utilizing a trust so that their children can enjoy their inheritance and don't have to lose it to the court system, okay? So that's what we're going to be discussing today. A lot of people, they have heard the term trust. They've heard the term trust fund, but they really either don't know what it is or they need more information. So this is the place and space that you want to be in to get that information, you guys, okay? A little background about myself. So I started off, I have been a trustee since 2015, and the way that I became a trustee was by way of real estate, you guys. So originally, I was a registered nurse, and I was a registered nurse for about 8 years. And I was living paycheck to paycheck. So I was working 12-hour shifts. I was working 5 days a week, sometimes even 6 days, because the hospital that I started my career in was short staffed. And so they would beg me to come to work. And so I was trading my time for money. And what I noticed was that I was spending more time in the hospital with my coworkers and my patients than I was spending at home with my 1-year-old baby, right? Fast forward, he's about to be 13 years old. So when I realized that, it was very devastating to me and I was frustrated, and I was asking myself, there has to be another way because I'm getting burnt out and I've only been a nurse. I was a year in. And so I'm like, what else can I do in order to make money? Right? I need a second stream of income. I need a side hustle. I need a business. I need something. So I was driving to work one day and I heard this man on the radio, and his name is Than Merrill. And he says, do you want to learn how to flip houses? And so I'm answering the radio and I'm like, yeah, I want to learn how to flip houses. So when he said that and I responded, I immediately signed up for whatever he was pitching. So he was like, come to this 3-day seminar. I said, okay. So I signed up. It was $100. I went to this 3-day seminar. And I learned so much about real estate investing in those 3 days. And I was blown away to the point that I was like, yes, I am going to invest in real estate. Yes, I'm going to start this LLC. Yes, I'm going to get into mentorship. Yes, right? Because I was looking for a way out of my career, but I was looking for a solution to my problem. And my problem was that I was in the rat race. My problem was that I didn't have time freedom to spend with my 1-year-old baby. So I went to the seminar, learned so much, signed up for mentorship. Fast forward 6 months after that seminar, I got my first property. So my mentor was my hard money lender. He put up the money for the house. And I bought this little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. It was $89,000 in North Miami Beach. And I end up renovating it and selling it for $235,000. And so in the midst of me experiencing earning 6 figures on one house, I was like blown away. And I was like, okay, now I know and understand that entrepreneurship is the way to go. But before I even sold this house, my mentor told me, you better put that house in a property. I mean, you better put that house in a trust. And I'm like, what is a trust? And why do I need to do that? I didn't understand the concept. I was young. I was 25. I'd never even really heard of what a trust was. And so, and this man was in his 50s. He had thousands of property all up and down the East Coast. So I was like, okay, I see that you're, flipping all these houses, you're holding, you got everything in a trust. So I'm just going to follow the yellow brick road. I'm going to do what you do. So I set up a trust, became a trustee, put that property into a trust because I was young. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I wanted to protect myself and didn't want to put myself in a position to where somebody could snatch this house from me. This was my first property. And so I was, expecting the unexpected. And when it comes to flipping houses and renovating, anything could happen, right? People could literally get injured, when you're breaking down walls and rebuilding them and putting down tile and all this stuff. So I was like, I'm not going to take any chances. So that's how I got into trusteeship, and I have been a trustee for the last 9 years. Okay, next year is going to be my 10th year operating a trust. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share some information with you guys. I'm going to pull up a slide. I'm going to share some information with you guys so that you can understand the importance of you having a trust and protecting the assets that you have. Okay. So let's dive in. And here we go. All right. So, I already told you guys about myself. So the objective is for us to learn what is a trust, how to operate a trust, some tax strategies, some wealth building strategies, how to protect your assets and the different contributors of a trust, okay? So how do these companies pay little to no taxes, right? We have the Trump organization, we have Microsoft, Exxon, Amazon, right? We have all these big Fortune 500 companies, right? And so we've heard Warren Buffett say that he pays less taxes than his secretary. We've heard Donald Trump say that he doesn't pay taxes because he's smart, right? And so the reason why these big Fortune 500 companies pay little to no taxes is because they're structured the right way, and because they have multiple entities within their structure, and they also have trust within their structure. So what you need to do is you need to also do it the same way too, where you have multiple entities within your structure and trust within your structure as well. So that's what I'm going to teach you guys today, okay? So let's dive in. What is a trust, right? We've heard the term trust. We've heard people say trust funds. We've heard people, dibble and dabble with these types of words. And so what I want to tell you guys is that a trust is an entity. It is a living, breathing entity just like you. You are a living, breathing entity. So anything that you can do, a trust can do. So if you can build credit, a trust can build credit. If you can get a mortgage for a house, a trust can get a mortgage for a house. If you can write a book, a trust can write a book, okay? So there's no limitations to what a trust can do. So it is an entity just like your LLCs and your corporations, okay? So those are also entities, but those entities you go to the state in order to create them, okay? With a trust, the way that this entity comes into existence is by creating a contract, okay? So you have to actually create this contract, and there's several different parts to this contract, which I'll dive into, and that is how this entity is formed, okay? So let's talk about the several different parts to this contract. So with this contract, there's two parts that I want to identify. The first part is the declaration. The declaration of the contract is where you're declaring what it is and you're declaring what it is not. So you're declaring that you are setting up a trust and you're setting up a trust entity through this contract. And then you're declaring that you are not setting up a corporation, an LLC, a partnership, a joint venture, or any other type of entity that can be identified in society, okay? So that's what the declaration portion of it is. Now, the second component is the actual agreement, or what we call the indenture, where you're going to be putting the rules and regulations to how you want this trust to operate, okay? You are ultimately going to be controlling the trust, and so you need to put inside of the trust the provisions for the trust. How do you want this trust to run 100 years into the future? Okay, so that is what we call the indenture or the actual agreement, okay? So now there's several different parties involved in this agreement. Let's talk about a few of them. The first one is the grantor. The grantor is the creator of the trust. So that is the individual. Sometimes you might hear the word settlor or trustor, okay? So when you're doing your research about trust, go ahead and be mindful of those names that are interchangeable with the term grantor. All of those names collectively mean creator. So that is the individual or party of this contract that is creating the contract. They are creating the contract for the benefit of someone else or another entity. That someone else is the beneficiary, okay? We'll talk about that in just a moment. So now, the grantor usually typically is the one who's going to fund the trust or donate into the trust the initial value that is placed in the trust, okay? Let's move on to the second party. The second party is the trustee, you guys. So that is the individual who controls the trust, okay? So that is the person who is going to operate the trust on a day-to-day basis. They have full control over the assets. They manage the assets that are inside of the trust. They make the decisions for those assets, meaning if you're going to buy them, if you're going to sell them, if you're going to rent them out, whatever it is that you want to do, or however you want to dispose of those assets, the trustee is the person that does it, okay? So now the trustee is a person that we call a fiduciary, okay? So meaning that they are doing all of these actions, meaning they're growing the trust estate for the benefit of somebody else. That somebody else, once again, is the beneficiary. So the trustee is representing the beneficiary when it comes to this trust estate, okay? So now let's talk about the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries are the inheritors of the trust, okay? So they're the persons who are ultimately going to be receiving the assets that are inside of the trust. They have what we call beneficial interest, okay? So beneficial interest is where these individuals or entities are going to be benefiting from the trust, meaning they're going to be receiving distributions, okay? So they're going to be receiving like a monthly allowance or quarterly or annually and gifts from the trust estate, okay? So now in the event that the trust is terminated, right? Meaning that the trustee decides, oh, I don't want to operate this trust anymore. Or let's just say that when you set it up for 50 years came and went, and now the trust is done and expired, then all of those assets are going to be transferred to the beneficiary, okay? That's when they're going to be receiving their inheritance. But as long as the trust exists, they're not going to have those assets in their personal name. Everything's going to be in the name of the trust, okay? So if you guys are intentional about building generational wealth, then you definitely need a trust, okay? Because a trust can operate anywhere between 1 year. You can set it up for 1 year, upwards of 100 years. So when that 100 years comes up, then you want to renew it so that it can then be active for an additional 100 years. So now that trust has been in existence for 200 years. That's how you're going to make sure that the wealth that you're creating is actually going to last generations, okay? So when you hear that term generational wealth, you actually want it to last the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth generation, okay? So let's keep moving on. Now, there's different types of trusts, you guys, okay? There's hundreds of different types of trusts. You have to choose the right trust for you, for your business, for your family, okay? So whatever trust works. So for you guys, what I want to do is I want to tell you guys about certain different categories when it comes to trust, okay? So the first category that I want to tell you guys is express versus implied, okay? So an express trust is a written agreement or a written trust. So it's in that contract form, okay? So meaning that it's black and white, it's on paper, and you physically sign that this trust agreement actually exists, okay? An implied trust is a verbal agreement between the grantor and the trustee, okay? So that is, done verbally, and so it's not on paper, it's not on black and white, okay? So those are the two different categories of trust that you can have, okay? So now let's continue. The next category that I want you to know of is simple versus complex. So with a simple trust, it's shorter in nature, so it has less provisions, right? Less rules and regulations and sections. And distributions, so the trustee are required to give distributions to the beneficiaries, okay? Versus, on the other hand, you have a complex trust, which is longer in nature, so there's more provisions, there's more sections and articles and bylaws in this type of trust. And distributions are not required to be given to the beneficiaries. The next type of trust category that I want to tell you guys about is discretionary versus non-discretionary. So with a discretionary trust, the trustee is able to make decisions that are not inside of the trust contract, right? So in the future, if you wanted to make decisions about cryptocurrency or anything like that, and it doesn't say it in the contract, with a discretionary trust, the trustee can do that. Versus non-discretionary, meaning that the trustee cannot make decisions that are not clearly identified as a provision inside of the trust contract, okay? So let me tell you about the next category. It's statutory versus non-statutory. So with a statutory trust, it is a trust that is created in a specific state, and it has all of the state statutes and codes embedded inside of it, right? So every single state has its own laws, okay? And those laws are called state statutes and codes. And so when you're creating a statutory trust, that means that whoever's creating that trust for you, they're inputting or embedding those state statutes and codes inside of it, okay? So two things happen. One, that trust is then registered with the county or the state, and it becomes a part of the public records. Two, you're limited to where you can only operate that trust in that one state, okay? So you cannot, so meaning that if you set it up in Georgia, but you have property in Texas, you can't operate that trust in Texas. You can only operate it in Georgia. And now if you want to protect property in Texas, you have to create another trust for Texas, okay? So you're limited to what you can do with a statutory trust. But because it's a statutory trust, you're giving the state jurisdiction to be able to regulate your trust, okay? On the contrary to that, you have non-statutory. So with a non-statutory trust, the jurisdiction that you're operating under is the common law jurisdiction, which means that there's no state statutes or codes embedded inside of your trust contract, okay? And your trust contract is not going to be registered with the county or the state, which is good because now your trust contract gets to remain private. Ultimately, that's what you want. You want your trust to remain private, you guys, okay? So with that being said, now that we understand that it is operating under the common law jurisdiction and that there's no state statutes and codes, that means that you can use this type of trust, a non-statutory trust, in the entire nation, right? So you can use it in all 50 states as well as all of the US territories, okay? So that will be working to your benefit, okay? So the next category that I want to tell you guys about is revocable versus irrevocable. So when we're talking about revocability or irrevocability, we are only referring to one party in this contract. The one party that we're referring to is the grantor, okay? So what we're saying with a revocable trust is that the grantor has revocability, meaning that the grantor, the person who created the trust, they can make changes to the trust, they can terminate the trust, they can remove the beneficiaries or the trustees, they can remove assets. If they were to place assets into the trust, they could remove those assets, okay? So that's what we're saying. Because the grantor or the creator has so much power and control, creditors can come after this type of trust. Okay, so creditors pertaining to the grantor and the trustee can actually come after this trust. So your assets are not fully protected with a revocable trust. And if creditors were to come after the trust, if it was to end up in some type of litigation, then what could happen is the judge can decide to pierce through a revocable trust. If the judge pierces through the revocable trust, then that means that your trust is now going to be a part of the public records. Everyone's going to know, you know, every single page of your trust is going to be visible in the public records. So they're going to know what's inside of your trust, who are the beneficiaries, what assets you have, the net worth of the trust, All of that stuff is going to now easily be available on the public records because court cases are a part of the public records, right? So on the contrary to that, you have irrevocable. With an irrevocable trust, what we're saying is that the grantor or the creator has irrevocability. So if they have irrevocability, what we're saying is that they cannot terminate the trust. They cannot make amendments to the trust. They cannot remove the trustee or the beneficiary. They cannot they cannot take assets out of the trust if they have placed assets in the trust. Okay, so that's specifically for the grantor. Okay, so because they have irrevocability, what we are now understanding is that your assets are fully protected in an irrevocable trust. So if creditors try to come after an irrevocable trust, they're not going to be successful. But let's just say that that your trust ended up in litigation. With that type of trust, due to trust law and contract law, a judge would decide not to pierce through an irrevocable trust, which means that you can maintain your privacy for your trust. It's not going to end up in the public records, okay? So you want that type of trust, okay? So now out of all of the categories that I just told you, when we are creating a trust, the first thing that you want to determine is what type of trust you want to create. So the type of trust that I recommend and what we call a bulletproof trust is a trust that is expressed in nature, right? So it's written. A trust that is discretionary, a trust that is non-statutory, and a trust that is complex in nature, and a trust that is irrevocable. So it needs to have or fall within those 5 categories in order for it to be the type of trust that is truly impenetrable and your assets are fully protected, okay? So let me check on the pulse of the room. How's it going, everybody? You guys enjoying this information so far? We're already like 3 slides in.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Well, if you're enjoying
Yes.
the please put some fireballs
Yes.
in so that we can get back to the slides. All right. Thank you, guys. Okay. All right. So you guys are getting what I'm putting down. Okay. So we're gonna save the questions for later. I have about maybe 3 or 4 more slides, and then we're gonna dive into Q&A. Okay, guys? So let's get back to the slides. So what I want to do is I want to give you the steps that it takes in order for you to create a trust. Okay, so step 1 is that you need to determine the type of trust that you want to create. Okay, do you want to create a revocable trust or irrevocable trust, right? So I recommend that bulletproof trust that I just told you guys about. Okay, now number 2 is you want to determine the trust name. Okay, so you got to name the trust. So there's 2 things that I need you to keep in mind. 1 is do not name the trust after yourself. Why? Because you're using the trust to protect your assets, right? And so if you're using the trust to protect your assets, you don't want to know that you're associated with the trust, okay? Hold on 1 second. I think somebody's off of mute. Yeah, let's put this on mute. Okay, there we go. All right, so you don't want anyone to know that you're associated with the trust, so please do not name the trust after yourself, okay? So if your name is John Smith, do not name the trust the John Smith Trust, okay? The second thing is that, remember, a trust is an entity, just like an LLC and a corporation. So you don't have to let anyone know that it is a trust entity, okay? So you don't even want to have the term trust in the actual name, okay? So just think about some names that you want. Usually what people will use like legacy, dynasty, generation, organization, stuff like that, right? They'll use terms like that. So now that you know what you want to name the trust, you're going to appoint the different parties involved in the trust, okay? So remember, if you're creating an irrevocable trust, you cannot be the grantor and the trustee. So you want to be the trustee, which is the controller of the trust. So you're going to have to appoint someone else to be your grantor. That person could be, anyone who's 18 years or older. That could be a next of kin. So it could be like a cousin, a best friend, a neighbor, a coworker, a family member. So you're just going to have to choose someone to be your grantor, okay? Now you are going to appoint yourself to be the trustee, okay? So that means that you actually are going to be managing the trust on a day-to-day basis, okay? Then you're going to appoint your beneficiaries. Your beneficiaries can be other entities, or they could be your children, right? Or natural persons, okay? So usually you'll put your children as your beneficiary, and then you're going to choose a successor. The successor is a successor trustee. That is the individual who's going to take over after you in the event that something happens to you. So in the event that you don't wake up tomorrow, in the event that you decide you want to just up and resign, in the event that you become incapacitated and can't make decisions, the successor is going to pick up where you left off. So it's very important that you have a successor, because if you don't, then your beneficiaries are going to have to drag that trust to court in order to appoint a trustee, okay? So with that being said, let's move on to number 3. So number 3, we're going to actually create the trust agreement. Remember, we're creating a contract, okay? So we have to create this contract. We have to put all the rules and regulations, or what we call provisions, of how we want this trust to operate, okay? This is how you're going to put yourself in a position to where you're going to be controlling your money from the grave. Why? Because you're the one who's building this legacy. You're the one who's actually going to create this estate. You're the one who's going to fund the estate. You're the one who is putting your assets in there. So you want to be able to control those assets from the grave, right? To control that money from the grave. So you're going to put spendthrift provisions in there to let the trustee know the do's and don'ts of how you want that money to be dispersed to the beneficiaries, okay? Remember, these beneficiaries, they didn't work hard for this money. So guess what they're going to do? They're going to spend the money. The money is going to disappear. That's what always happens. And so that's why you need to put those rules and regulations in there of how you want the money to be managed throughout the generations, okay? So now let's move on to number 4. In number 4, we're talking about notarize the trust. So what does that mean, right? Once we're done creating this contract, we got to legalize the contract. So the way that we legalize it is by notarizing it. It needs to be notarized by 2 individuals. Who are those individuals? The 2 parties in the contract, which is the grantor and the trustee, okay? So those 2 individuals need to sign in front of a notary. Once that trust is notarized, that means it's legalized and you can start operating it, okay? So the first thing that you want to do when you are operating this trust is you want to open up that trust fund, you guys. So what does that look like? Well, let's talk about it. So what is considered a trust fund, right? So there are many different types of accounts that you can open up for the trust, right? So you can open up a checking account, a savings account, a money market account, a brokerage account, a cash management account. You can open it up with a bank, a credit union, or a brokerage, or any financial institution that offers trust accounts, okay? So what you're going to provide is a certificate of trust and that EIN number, okay? So you're going to get that 9-digit number with the IRS, and you're going to also provide them with a certificate of trust, which is proof of identity that the trust exists, okay? So just like how you walk around with a state ID, the trust also needs to walk around with identification, okay? So that is what we call the certificate of trust, okay? So now you're going to provide those to the bank, and they are going to open up a trust fund account for you, okay? So now that you have this trust account, you're going to fund it. So you can fund it with, cash money, with fiat currency, right? With the US dollar, whatever it is, whatever currency that you use, right? And so you can fund it with whatever the minimum is. You just have to document it on the trust, what that amount that you're going to fund the trust with, okay? So that's going to be the initial threshold of what you're starting the trust with, okay? So now that you open up the bank account, then you want to do the next most important thing, which is actually transfer your assets into the trust, okay? So that is one of the most vital steps, and this is the step that I see that a lot of people miss the most, right? A lot of people, they'll set up a trust, they'll never actually transfer their house into the trust, and then they expire. And so the house always stays in their personal name. That is not what you want to do, okay? Why? Because this house that's in your personal name, right? It is, anybody can take that house from you because it's a part of the public records, right? Anybody can search and see that you own that house. All they have to do is go down to the county website, do a property search, they'll put your first and last name and your property is gonna come up. Or they'll put the address and your name and information comes up, right? So you're a part of the public records, the property is a part of the public records. You are what we call low-hanging fruit for any person who wants to sue you or come after you. So you don't want to do that because you don't want to put yourself in a position to where someone can seize your assets. So what you want to do is you want to remove yourself from that property. So when you purchase that property, you received a deed, right? And so all you have to do is just redeed that property into the trust, right? So the type of deed that we use is a quitclaim deed, and we quitclaim it from our personal name into the name of the trust. So what we're doing is we're gifting the home, to the trust, okay? And so now we're going to deed over the property from our personal name into the trust. We notarize that deed, we send it down to the county, they record it, and now on the public records is going to represent that the new owner of that house is the trust. So that is a little snippet of what it looks like in order to put your house into a trust, okay? So that's one of the most important steps, because if your property is not legally in the name of the trust, then it's not fully protected, okay? And if it's not fully protected, then it can end up in probate and a lot of other things. So let's talk about what a trust can protect you from. So the main reason why you actually want to create a trust is two reasons. One, asset protection, and two, to maintain privacy. Why? Because I just showed you that you're a part of the public records. All they have to do is just put your name on a search and boom, every single property that you own in that county shows up. You don't want that, right? Or on the other hand is, is asset protection. So what can a trust actually protect you from? It can protect you from bankruptcy. It can protect you from divorce. It can protect you from foreclosures, from heavy taxations, from lawsuits, from probate. So let's talk about a few of them, right? So the first one is divorce, you guys. I love talking about this because this is something that happens all the time and we don't even know, right? Like one minute you're in love and the next minute, you guys are going your separate ways. So you want to protect yourself from that type of situation, because a lot of people don't know that a divorce is a transfer of wealth. And I'm going to say it again. A divorce is a transfer of wealth. Right? So what does that mean? Well, typically one spouse will end up with everything and the other spouse will end up with nothing and pretty much in the streets, right? And so you don't want to be in that position. So how can a trust actually protect you from a divorce? Well, divorce is a lawsuit, right? It's a lawsuit. You go to court. It's a lawsuit between two individuals. And so in this lawsuit, you are putting all of your personal assets. You're listing everything that you own in your personal name, right? So your house, your 401k, your pension, your crypto, your stocks, your bonds, everything that you own. Including all of your debt, right? So you're listing all of this stuff in the divorce for you guys to then be able to divide everything, right? And so how a trust can protect you is because if you have a trust and you have assets inside of that trust, those assets that are inside of that trust and that trust cannot be pulled into your divorce. So that means that those assets are protected, right? So in the event that you have a divorce, but you have 4 houses in a trust, those 4 houses are protected and cannot be pulled into the divorce. Why? Because the divorce is between the 2 people, right? Between the 2 spouses. So the only thing that can be included in the divorce is everything that's in your personal name. So that's why you want to set up a trust put property into a trust to protect yourself from this type of situation, okay? So let's move on to the next one that I want to tell you guys about, which is heavy taxation. A lot of us, we are giving away half of our income, you guys. So let's just be real, right? If you're living in these high income tax states, which are New York, California, right? You're giving away a lot of your money, right? You're giving away at least 50% of it to the IRS, right? And to the state, right? And so what you want to do is you want to put yourself in a position to where you can reduce your tax liability. The way you can do that by utilizing a trust is by setting up a specific type of trust that we call a 508c1a designated trust, which is, it can be labeled as a lot of other different things, but in a sense is a tax exempt nonprofit trust, okay? And so the IRS will allow you to donate up to 60% of your annual gross income. So if you're making $100,000 for the year, right, you can donate up to $60,000 of that $100,000. So if you donate that to your trust, then that means that you can only now be taxed on $40,000. So you're going to be saving thousands of dollars on taxes, you guys. And what are you going to do with all that money that you're saving? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to put it somewhere else so that it can grow, right? And so that it can make you more money instead of giving it away to the IRS, okay? So you definitely want to use trust within your structure to reduce your tax liability, okay? Another thing is that the government taxes you when you die. A lot of us, we don't know this. There's an inheritance tax, there's a death tax, there's an estate tax, okay? And so what happens is if you set up a trust, then they can't tax your trust because they can only, because your trust is not dead, right? So they can only tax you the inheritance tax and the death tax, right? And so if you put all your assets in a trust, then you can avoid that heavy taxation that the government wants to give you on your way out, right? So there's a lot of different strategies and ways that you can actually reduce your tax liability. And I'll talk about those in a few. So let's talk about lawsuits really quickly. So when it comes to lawsuits, right? Let's just be honest, you guys. We live in the United States of America, which is a sue-friendly country. Everybody wants to sue you. Your neighbor wants to sue you. Your coworker wants to sue you. Your business clients, your partners, they want to sue you. Everybody wants to sue you, okay? So you don't want to put yourself in a position to where you're waiting until you get sued to protect yourself from a lawsuit, okay? So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and set up a trust and put your assets in trust so that someone doesn't take it from you. So let me give you an example. Let's just say that you are a business owner and you have what we call an LLC, right? What does LLC stand for? I can't hear you. You got to come off mute. What is L?
Limited liability company.
Exactly. Thank you. So LLC stands for limited liability company, right? So what does that mean? You hear it in the actual name, right? So if you hear the word limited liability, what does that mean to you? Okay. Well,
You can still be sued.
exactly. Okay. So that means that the company has limited liability. So you're setting up an entity. All right. This entity is a legal entity through the Secretary of State, right? And so you're setting up this LLC. And so it's a limited liability company, meaning that the company has limited liability. So if the company has limited liability for anything that might occur with that business, who do you think has the other portion or half of that liability?
Us.
Yes. Okay. I'm telling you guys passed the pop quiz, you guys. Yes. So that means that you, the person who set up the business, has the other half of that liability. Okay. So let's talk about it. So you set up an LLC, and when you did your articles of organization, you put yourself down as the owner, right? Yes. You put yourself down as the owner, or what we call the authorized member of that LLC. So now, let's just say, so now you're agreeing to having a portion of this liability. So now let's just say that your client wants to sue you, right? It is super easy for your client to find out who the business owner is, right? All they have to do is go down to the Secretary of State's website, right? Which is part of the public records. And they're going to do a business search, right? They're going to search your name, the business name, and they're going to put in the name of your LLC. And guess what's going to come up? All the information of the LLC, meaning what? The day it was established, who's the registered agent, who's the authorized member, which is you. So your name comes up, your address, your email, phone number, everything, whatever it is that they want, it just comes up, right? And so it's available for the entire world to see it, okay? So now your client that wants to sue you, they're able to now go and proceed with this litigation, right? So they go and they end up suing your business. And now let's just say your business, ends up losing this lawsuit, right? And so the business loses the lawsuit, and let's just say that the business, right, the LLC cannot fulfill that judgment, right? There's a judgment for $100,000 and the LLC can't fulfill it. Guess what? That judge can decide to pierce through that corporate veil. So the corporate veil is that protection that you have with that LLC, right? And so you thought that you were fully protected. No, you're not. You're not fully protected, right? So the judge can decide to pierce through that corporate veil and come after you as the owner. Why? Because it's a limited liability company. You have liability, right? You're saying that whatever happens with this business, I'm going to be liable for it, right? And so now they come after you. And so what can happen? Well, they can actually seize your assets. So they can seize your house, they can seize your car, they can garnish your entire bank accounts, your business accounts, your personal accounts, right? They can garnish your wages. They can do all that. They can take everything from you guys, every single last thing, okay? So you don't want that to happen, okay? So what you want to do is you want to protect yourself from that type of situation, okay? And the way that you do that is by setting up a trust, specifically a business trust that is going to take full liability over that LLC, right? So you're going to set up a business trust. You're going to remove yourself as the owner of that LLC. So right now you're the owner, you're the authorized member. Guess what you have to do? You have to go down to the Secretary of State's website. You have to do an amendment to the Articles of Organization. You have to remove yourself as the owner or the authorized member of that LLC. Then you have to add the new authorized member, which is the business trust. And then now the state processes it. And now when you go and look up that business, that LLC, guess what shows up? The name of the business trust, and your name is nowhere to be found, right? And so now they're not going to know that you're the owner because you're not, right? The business trust is now the new owner of that LLC. The business trust takes 100% liability over that LLC, right? So you want that first layer of protection between you and your company. You don't want to be out here, as the owner of your company, and then anybody could snatch your assets away just because they're mad that, they didn't get their candles on time, or that they said that your candles burnt their house or anything, right? So you want to make sure that you have a first layer of protection, which is the business trust is going to be the middle person between you and the company, okay? So that is how you can actually protect yourself from a lawsuit, because in the event that that LLC is sued and that the judge decides to pierce through the corporate veil, who are they going to go after? They're going to go after the business trust, right? And the business trust takes full liability. So with that type of entity, you're not going to hold any assets in it. That asset is just going to be there to hold the LLCs or the corporations, okay? All right, so let's keep going on, you guys. So now my next question to you is, right? So we're going to move on to probate. So my next question to you is, remember we was talking about this house, right? This house that you own. And hold on one second, I lost you guys. Okay, so remember we were talking about this house that you own that's in your personal name, right? So my question to you is, with this property that you own right now today, the property that's in your personal name, where your kids live, where you live, right? If you didn't wake up tomorrow, how do you expect that property to be transferred from your personal name to your kids or your spouse or whoever you want to inherit that house? So this is a question. I need you guys to come off mute. We're doing pop quizzes here, guys. Come on now.
It won't.
It won't. Okay, I mean, you can't do it. Somebody has to do it, right? Like, what's gonna happen? The house is just gonna sit there?
Probate.
Probate.
Government takes it.
Exactly. Okay, you guys know. Exactly. So one, you gotta get the government involved. Two, it's up to a judge if that house is going to be transferred from your name to your children's name or your spouse or your sibling, whoever you want to receive that property. So that judge doesn't even know who you are. That judge doesn't even know your children. But the way that you have things set up right now, you're literally leaving it up to a judge to make the decision if your children are going to receive their inheritance, if your children are going to receive mom and dad's house. There is no way for your property to be transferred to your child's name without the courts being involved and without there being a judge signing off on it. So, unfortunately, right, we are all going to end up in probate. A lot of us, we don't know that. We don't know that we're going to end up in probate, you guys. And so there's only one way to avoid probate, and that is by you setting up a trust and by you putting your assets in a trust. So this is the way that it works, right? A lot of people, they think that a will is good enough. And so they'll just only have a will and they'll say, you know, I want my daughter to get my house, right? And so what I want you to know is that a will is a wish list, okay? A will cannot own anything, right? A trust can, okay? So a will is a wish list where it will end up in probate and where you're putting on your last will and testament, I wish my daughter will get my house. I wish my son will get my car. I wish this one will get the cash in the bank. That is what you're doing when you have a will. If you set up a trust, everything that's inside of the will becomes obsolete because you can put everything that's inside of a last will and testament into a trust estate, okay? So let's go through this entire process, okay? So let's just say that you have this fancy house that we're talking about, right? You got the house, you got a car, you got $500,000 in the bank. And let's just say you got a little bit of debt, right? You got student loan debts, credit card debts, right? And you didn't wake up tomorrow. What is going to happen? Well, the state where you're resident, so let's just say Georgia, Texas, Alabama, wherever you are a resident, they are going to create an estate for you. So if your name is John Smith, they're going to create the John Smith estate. And then they're going to transfer your assets into that estate. So your house, your car, your checking account with $500,000 in it is going to be automatically transferred into that estate. So one thing that I need you to understand is that you are going to end up with an estate anyways. You're either going to let the state of Texas do it, or you're going to create your own estate while you're living. But either way, you're going to end up with an estate. I would prefer for you to create your own estate while you're living, because it's a whole different ball game, and I'm going to break it down to you right now. So let's just say you didn't have your affairs in order, and so you only had a will, which ended up in probate. So the state of Texas had to create an estate for you, the John Smith estate. They transferred all of your property in there, right? Your stocks, your bonds, your car, your house, cash, money in the bank, right? And now, so they transferred all of the assets into your estate. And so now what happens is your state needs to go to probate court and needs to be represented, okay? So your state is going to be represented by a probate attorney, and is going to be represented in probate court. So the first thing that happens is the probate court, right? The judge actually starts to pay off your liabilities. All of your liabilities are deducted from your estate. Remember, everything that's inside of your estate is your children's inheritance, right? So your liabilities are what? Your credit card debt, your student loan debt, plus what? Medical bills, right? You racked up some bills in the ICU, right? You racked up some bills in the nursing home, right? So all of that is being deducted, right? Medicare, Medicaid, all of that, right? So the first thing that happens is that the judge pays off all of your creditors, okay? Everything, all of your liabilities, right? Medicare gets a check, everybody gets a check, okay? And so now the second thing that happens is the probate attorney gets their fees, right? So they get a portion of the inheritance because they represented your estate in probate court. And then probate court has their fees. So that's now deducted from your estate. So now whatever is left over from all of those different various deductions, right? From the creditors to the attorneys to the court, whatever's left over is what your children get. So your children get the leftovers, to be honest with you, okay? And sometimes the leftovers is nothing, right? Sometimes I've seen it to where the judge decides to sell your house in order for them to be able to pay Medicare, in order for them to be able to pay the $400,000 ICU bill, right? And so now your children are being put in this situation to where they're in probate court, and they're either fighting each other, or they're fighting the government, or they're fighting, the probate court to be able to keep mom and dad's house. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. Why? Because you decided not to have your affairs in order, because you decided to leave it up to a judge if your children actually receive their inheritance. And because you didn't have your affairs in order, they receive the leftovers if there's anything left over. Okay, so this whole entire process can be avoided, right? And you want to avoid this process. Why? Because you have to understand that your children, they have just lost the most important person in their life, right? They just lost mom and dad, right? And so they're grieving, right? And so instead of you allowing them to grieve properly, you are dragging them through the probate process that could have been avoided. And so this is what it looks like if you avoid the probate process. So right now, while you're living, you set up a trust estate. You decide to transfer your house, your car, and you set up a bank account for the trust, and you put that $500,000 in there. So now all of your assets are owned by the trust. If you decide that you didn't wake up tomorrow, guess what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. Sure. So nothing happens, you guys. Why? Because everything is owned by the trust. The trust remains intact, and you are the trustee, but you decided not to wake up tomorrow. So now your successor trustee picks up where you left off, and they continue to operate the trust. Everything is going to remain intact. Your house is going to remain in the name of the trust. Your car is going to remain in the name of the trust. The trust bank account is going to remain intact with the $500,000 in it. Your children are the beneficiary, so they get to grieve in private. They get to grieve at their own pace, and they completely avoid the entire probate process. And that debt that you had, that debt dies with you. So the credit card debt, the student loan debt, the hospital bills, the nursing home bills, all of that debt dies with you, because that debt was in your personal name. Those creditors cannot come after your trust estate. So your trust estate is fully protected. Your assets that are inside of the trust are protected, and your children will receive their entire inheritance. They will never have to go through the probate process. That is the way that you want this whole entire process to go, right? So that is why you actually want to set up a trust, so that you can avoid probate. That's the only way to avoid probate. There's no other way. Okay, you're going to end up in probate if you keep on doing what you've been doing. So let's continue on with the slides. I pretty much got 2 more slides for you guys, and then we can start some Q&A here. Okay. All right. So let's see here. All right, guys, so let's move on to the wealth building formula, you guys. This is why you came here tonight. You came here to learn how to build wealth utilizing a trust, okay? So I have 3 pillars for you here. I have pillar 1, which is structure. I have pillar 2, which is credit. And I have pillar 3, which is invest, okay? So let's break it down and start with pillar 1, which is structure. So one thing that I want you to know is that it's very important for you to be properly structured. And if you're not properly structured, then you want to get restructured, because structure is the difference between poverty and wealth, to be honest with you, okay? And so you want to have multiple trusts within your structure. You do not want to have all of your eggs in one basket, which means that you don't want to have all of your assets in one trust. Remember, I gave you the example earlier about having a business trust with the LLC, right? So in the event that somebody tries to sue your trust, you don't want to have all of your assets in this one trust that's being sued, okay? So, so now let's talk about the different trusts that I recommend. So I recommend that you guys have 3 different types of trusts. The first one is a business trust if you are a business owner or entrepreneur. The second one is a private family trust for you to hold all of your personal assets that have nothing to do with business. The third one is a tax-exempt trust, which is a nonprofit in order for you to reduce your tax liabilities and for you to enjoy your charitable and philanthropic endeavors. So let's talk about the first one, which is the business trust. With the business trust, you can utilize this trust in 2 different ways. The first way is you can utilize it as a holding company. What that means is that it's going to be non-operational, meaning that you are not providing any products or services out here to the community, okay, to the masses. It's going to be a holding company, so it's not going to offer any products or services. It's not going to have any W-2 employees or payroll or anything like that. What its sole purpose is to own and manage other entities, specifically your LLCs and your corps. So what you're going to do is with the business trust, you're going to set it up as a holding company and have it own your LLC, okay? Now, your LLC is going to remain intact. Your LLC is going to remain with the employees, with the payroll, with offering the products and the services to the community, okay? So that's the first way that you can utilize a business trust. The second way that you can utilize a business trust is by actually running a business, okay? So what do you mean by that? Well, instead of you creating an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp, you can create a business trust and you can operate your business through the business trust, okay? So if you wanted to open up a restaurant or e-com retail store or anything like that, you could do that under the structure of a business trust, okay? Instead of you, because a lot of us, we don't know that our LLCs, those are statutory entities. You go to the Secretary of State in order to establish them, right? And so you're giving the state jurisdiction to be able to regulate your LLCs, and they can shut you down at any point in time. Why? Because if you don't, let's just say you don't file your annual report, right? They can dissolve your LLC, right? And so with you setting up a business trust and operating your business that way, then they don't have the jurisdiction to be able to, to regulate your business, okay? So with that being said, you can use it in two different ways, like I just mentioned. Now, with the business trust, right? Let's just say that it owns your LLC, right? And so what happens is the money that's being generated from your LLC, right? It can pass through into your business trust, right? So let's just say that your LLC is generated $100,000. That money can then be distributed to the owner, which is the business trust. So now that whole $100,000 can go straight into the business trust as a K-1 distribution. So now that it's on the business trust level, one thing that I love about these entities is that you are going to spend the money first and you're going to be taxed on the leftovers. And I'm going to say that again. With a trust entity, you are going to spend the money first and then you're going to be taxed on the leftovers. That's exactly what you want, because on the flip side, if you're a W-2 employee, you're taxed first and you get the leftovers, right? So now when it comes to this business trust, right, it is a for-profit entity. So that means that it has to file taxes. It's going to file a 1041. So you as the natural person, you file a 1040, but a trust is seen separate from you. So a trust is going to file a 1041, okay? So now that we know that, a trust is taxed anywhere between 10% upwards of 39%. So what we want to do is we want to spend the money first. So if $100,000 is coming in, what we're going to do is we're going to deduct OPEX, right? So that's our operating expenses. What does it cost in order for us to operate our business trust? Let's just say that it costs $30,000. So now we're going to do our normal deductions for administrative, expenses and operating expenses, and we're going to deduct $30,000 out of that $100,000. So now we have a balance of $70,000. Out of that $70,000, we have to pay taxes on it, you guys, okay? So one of the beautiful things that I love about a trust is that you can actually, that liability, that tax liability, you can distribute it to the beneficiary, and now the beneficiary has to pay taxes on it, right? And so with this type of structure, what we do is we make the beneficiary of the business trust the family trust. Why? Because if you're an entrepreneur and a business owner, then what you're doing is you are making the money in your business to provide for your family so you can put food on the table. And so what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to move that money from the business entity into the family entity so we could spend it on the family. Okay. So we make the family trust the beneficiary of the business trust. Now we have $70,000 that we have to pay taxes on. But one of the beautiful things that we can do is we can distribute that $70,000 to the beneficiary, which is the private family trust. And now on the business trust level, we are done paying taxes because we deducted $30,000 as operating expenses and we distributed $70,000. So now we have a tax liability of 0. Okay, so we're done paying taxes for the business trust. So now we're going to move down to the private family trust. The private family trust is one where you're going to place all of your personal assets. So what are some assets that can be placed in the private family trust? Your primary residence, you can put jewelry in there, you can put weapons like guns in there, you can put your insurance policies, your crypto, your stocks, your bonds, your cash, things like that, okay? And so you're going to make the beneficiary your children, okay? And so now with this private family trust, you just received $70,000 in income. So guess what? We're going to spend the money first and we're going to be taxed on the leftovers. So now you get to do a whole new set of operating expenses, okay? So what does it cost in order to operate the family, right? Well, the family trust has assets like your primary residence. So you have expenses like taxes, maintenance, utilities, right? So those are operating expenses, okay? So you can go ahead and deduct those, okay? So let's just say that it costs, you know, $60,000 in order to run the family trust, right? So now what's gonna happen is you're gonna deduct $60,000 out of the $70,000 and now you're gonna have $10,000 left. You're gonna pay 10% on that $10,000 and then you're done paying taxes. Another thing that you can do is you can also donate to your tax exempt trust, right? So let's just say you didn't want to pay 10% on that 10,000. You wanted to donate that 10,000 to your tax exempt trust. If you donated 10,000 to your tax exempt trust, then on the private family trust level, you had deducted 60, you donated 10, you were done with the 70, and your tax liability is 0. And now 10,000 came into the tax exempt trust, right? This trust, let me break it down to you. It's a nonprofit. It's automatically exempt from paying federal taxes. Why? Because this type of trust is designated as a 508c1a. Okay, so that is a part of the Internal Revenue Code, okay, Code 508. All right, and so what it is it's a mandatory exception to not having to file for a 501c3. So all nonprofits, in order for them to be exempt from federal taxes, they have to file for a 501c3, okay? So with this type of entity, because there's a separation between church and state, you do not have to file for a 501c3. As long as you're labeling yourself as a church, a faith-based organization, a ministry, or a charitable organization that is for religious or educational purposes, okay? So if you're labeled as any of those types of entity and you're designating yourself as a 508, then you do not have to file for tax exemption. You are automatically exempt from federal taxes. You can also be qualified to exempt from state taxes, county taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, okay? So you do have to apply for those exemptions, okay? But your mandatory automatically don't have to apply for a federal tax exemption. So that means that you don't have to file the 1041 unless you're reporting income and that income is over $5,000. So whatever's coming into your tax exempt trust, it has to be labeled as a donation or a tithe, okay? And then that is going to qualify as those funds being exempt from taxes. But if it comes in as income and you have more than 5,000, then you do have to pay taxes, okay? So I'm a firm believer that you want to have a for-profit entity and a nonprofit entity within your structure, you guys. And so the example that I was giving you earlier today about if you're a W-2 employee, then you can donate up to 60% of your annual gross income per the IRS to your tax exempt trust, right? And so now that 60% is going in there, and now you're only going to be required to pay taxes on 40% of your income versus 100% of your income. That's going to put you in the position to where you're going to have more money in your pockets to now be able to allocate somewhere else, to now be able to invest and acquire assets with that money that you have, okay? So let's move on to the next pillar, you guys, okay? The next pillar is credit, where I want to talk to you guys about using OPM, other people's money. So the first thing that I want to bring to your awareness is that because you have a nonprofit within your structure, you get to qualify for nonprofit grants, okay? So just keep that in mind. Now, the second thing I want to bring to your attention is you have a business trust. That business trust is going to be issued an EIN number. You can build business credit with that EIN. So a lot of us were using our personal credit, but it's going to be a beautiful thing for you now to be able to leverage a second credit profile. So you want to be able to build credit with a business trust so that you are able to get higher lines of credit. So typically on the personal side, we'll get lines of credit of 10,000, 20,000. On the business side, you get lines of credit of 70,000, 100,000, right? So that's what you want to put yourself in a position to where you're using OPM, you're using other people's money, you're using the bank's money in order to get rich. You're using the bank's money in order to be able to leverage that money to then acquire assets with that money, okay? So that's the position that you want to put yourself in. So the business trust is going to build credit just like an LLC and a corporation, because those entities build credit off of EINs. So you're going to do the same thing with the business trust, okay? So let's move on to the third pillar, which is invest, you guys. And so these are two assets that I absolutely love. The first one is a liquid asset. It's the Index Universal Life Insurance Policy. And then the second one is a tangible asset, which is real estate, right? So let's talk about them for just a moment. So the first one is what we call your IULs, okay? Index Universal Life. So a lot of people think that insurance is supposed to be utilized when they are dead. But in actuality, life insurance is supposed to be used when you are living. There are a lot of living benefits with life insurance, you guys, and you guys are not utilizing them. So some of the living benefits is, one, you get to grow your money inside of an IUL policy tax-free. So that is one of the most beautiful things ever in the world, okay? You need to put your money into tax-free vehicles. Why? Because you're going to compound and earn more money if it's not being taxed, okay? So the money that you're putting inside of your IUL is tax-free. It's liquid. This is seen as an asset, okay? And it's going to be building cash value and earning compound interest, okay? So what do we mean when we say that? So with your IUL policy, right, you have a death benefit that's associated with. So that means that, you know, when the good Lord calls you, there's going to be a certain amount that is your death benefit that's going to be paid out, you know, paid out to the beneficiary. And then you have your cash value. Your cash value is cash that you're accumulating inside of your policy, right, when you're making those premiums. So let's just say that you make $100 premium, right? $80 is going to go to your cash value, and $20 is going to go to the cost of doing business. So just imagine how much money you're going to be accumulating in your cash value, right? So now the beautiful thing that I love about your cash value is that with this type of policy, right? With an index universal life insurance policy, the thing that we see here is the word index. And so what does the word index mean, right? And so the word index is actually referring to the stock market, and it's actually referring to an indice. So there are several different indices in the stock market. You have the Dow Jones, you have the NASDAQ, and you have the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is tracking the top 500 companies in the United States, okay? So typically, that indice is going to do about 8 to 10%, right? So that's what they tell you. The market is doing 8 to 10%, okay? So now what happens is whatever that index does, let's just say it's the S&P 500, the insurance carrier is going to match it and give you that return on your cash value. So let's just say that the market is doing 8%. Well, what the insurance carrier is going to do is they see that you have, $10,000 in your IUL, in your cash value. They're going to give you 8% because they're going to match the market. So your money is not inside of the stock market. It just mirrors the market. And so you get to enjoy that compound interest. That means that your money is now going to be growing, and it's going to be making more money. And it's going to be that snowball effect that you need and want, okay? So with that being said, what you want to do is you want to accumulate as much cash value as possible, okay? So what we do is we actually have the trust be the owner of our IUL policies. We are the insured because we are the living people. And then we have the trust be the payer of the premiums, and we have the trust be the beneficiary of the policy, okay? And I'll break that down further in just a minute. But ultimately, what you want to do is you want to put yourself in a position to where you're going to pay yourself first. And a lot of us, we don't do that, right? We do not put ourselves in a position to pay ourselves first. And so it's going to take a mindset shift for you to be able to, one, understand this concept, and for you to now be able to adopt it, because we're so used to getting paid last. And I'm going to say that again. We are so used to getting paid last, you guys. And so now what it's going to take is for us to do things differently if we want different results. So if you are here to truly build generational wealth, and to build that wealth efficiently and effectively, then you have to do things different than the way you've been doing them, okay? So it's going to take a mindset shift. So what does the concept of paying yourself first looks like? Well, let me break it down to you. So let's just say that you are a W-2 employee, right? Well, what is the first thing that happens, right? So today is, let's just say that today is Friday, is payday, and you just got paid, right? $5,000, right? What is the first thing that happens? Well, the first thing that happens is when you get paid, the first thing that happens is the IRS takes their cut, right? So the IRS takes their cut, meaning they do their tax withholding. Then Social Security takes their withholding. Then Medicare takes their withholding. Then you do a 401k contribution, right? So what does that mean? That means that 4 organizations just got paid or took a portion of your paycheck before you even seen your paycheck. The IRS, Social Security, Medicare, 401k contribution. 4 organizations, right? Okay. So now what happens? Well, you get the leftovers. where do the leftovers go? The leftovers are direct deposited into your checking accounts, right? And who do you bank with? You bank with Wells Fargo, with Chase, and with Bank of America. So now your money just went direct deposit into the bank, right? And so now you're actually making the banks richer, right? Why? Because they are leveraging your money in order to be able to give out mortgages, credit card loans, or credit cards, personal loans, car loans, right? They're giving out all of this money, right? And so they're actually leveraging your money and lending it out, right? And they're lending it out for high interest, right? They're charging people 20%, 30% interest for these credit cards and mortgages and things of that nature, right? And so how much are they giving you? Well, how much do we see? We see 0.0005%, right? We see 0 point nothing. So we barely see anything. We're not making any type of interest, any type of returns off of, one, our money just sitting in the bank, or two, us allowing the banks to leverage our money and lend it out, right? And so we need to understand that, one, we're making the banks richer, but two, a lot of people think that the banks are getting rich off of giving out mortgages and loans and credit cards and car loans and everything like that. But in actuality, the banks, their number one asset is life insurance. So it's called BOLI, Bank-Owned Life Insurance, BOLI, okay? And that is the bank's number one asset, is life insurance policies. So if their number one asset is life insurance policies, don't you think that your number one asset should be life insurance policies? Just think about it. We have to do what the banks are doing. We have to put ourselves in a position to where we have the number one asset, but then we also have to put ourselves in a position to where we're earning compound interest, okay? So let's continue to talk about it, right? So now you're making the banks richer. Your $5,000 just got deposited, direct deposit into your bank account, right? And you're now allowing them to leverage your money, right? So now that your money is sitting inside of the bank, right? What you need is for you to set up your own private bank and have your money sitting in your private bank, right? So what does that look like? Well, what is the first thing that happens when you receive your paycheck? The first thing that happens when we get our paycheck is we pay our bills, right? So we start paying our mortgage, our rent, we start buying groceries, we put gas in a car, we pay our car note, we pay our light bill, our gas bill, our internet bill, we pay everything, all the utilities, we pay everything. We pay all of our bills. So that $5,000 that just came in, after we covered all of our bills, we probably have about $800 left. And so that's the only money that we have to invest, or that's the only money that we have that we're just gonna let sit in a savings account, right? So you either let it just sit there in your checking account, which you do, or if you got, if you got a little bit, you will go ahead and transfer it into a high yield savings account, right? So that is usually what we do. And that's the definition of the rat race, you guys. That is the definition of the rat race and us living paycheck to paycheck, because we're in this vicious cycle, right? And so you need to get out of the vicious cycle. right? And so we don't want to live paycheck to paycheck anymore. We don't want to be on this hamster wheel anymore where our money is coming in and it's just going right back out. It's coming in and it's going right back out. It's coming in and it's going right back out, right? And so what we need to do is we need to break those chains and actually do something different. So what you want to do is you want to put yourself in a position to where you're paying yourself first. So instead of you going out and paying your rent or your mortgage or utilities or gas or your car note or grocery or any of those things, as soon as that $5,000 comes into your bank account, what you're going to do is you're going to transfer it into your IUL policy. All right, so you're going to transfer it into your cash value life insurance policy, and now your cash value went up by $5,000. Okay, but that $5,000, you need to be able to use it in order to pay your bills, or you're not going to be able to get to work tomorrow because you don't have no gas in your car. So what happens is, what you're going to do is once you put that 5,000 in, then your cash value goes up by 5,000. Remember, this is a liquid asset, right? And so what you're going to do is you're going to request a loan from the life insurance company. And so they're going to, one, look at your cash value and see that you have 5,000 in there, right? They're going to collateralize it, right? So now they're going to give you a loan. It's not going to be for the whole 5,000. It's going to be for probably about $4,800. So now they're going to give you a loan for $4,800. And now they're going to direct deposit that $4,800 into your checking account, you guys, okay? And so now you get to use that money in order to be able to pay your bills. But your $5,000 is still sitting in your IUL policy, working, making money for you, right? And earning the compound interest. So if the market is doing 8%, then they're going to match 8% and give you 8% on that $5,000, okay? So you actually took a loan from the life insurance company's reserves, from their bank account. They issued that loan from their money, right? And gave it to you, okay? So your money is still sitting in your policy working for you, okay? So that's what you want to do, because you have two choices. You can either put the whole $5,000 and earn compound interest off of that, or you can put the leftovers, which is the $800, and earn compound interest off of that. So which one would you rather? Would you rather earn 8% off of 5,000 or 8% off of $800, right? And so that is the concept of paying yourself first, and that is what you need to do, you guys. I know it might sound a little scary, it might be a little intimidating, you might be a little hesitating and all this other stuff, but that is what's going to get you into financial freedom. That is what's going to get you out of the rat race and living paycheck to paycheck and living even above your means, right? You don't want to do that anymore, okay? So, like I said before, with the IUL policies, right? It has a lot of living benefits, and so you definitely want to utilize it. But the way that it works with the trust is, the trust is going to be the owner of your life insurance policy. The trust is going to pay the premiums for the life insurance policy, and the trust is going to be the beneficiary of the life insurance policy. Because if anything happens to you, that death benefit goes straight to the trust. So with that loan that you took out for the $4,800, that loan does not need to be paid back. Why? Because the life insurance company is going to deduct it from your death benefit, okay? So that's one of the beautiful things about IULs, and you definitely need to utilize this within your wealth building formula. Let's move on to real estate, you guys, because y'all already know from the beginning of this call, I told you I flip houses, right? So I'm knee deep into real estate, okay? I've been doing this since 2015. One thing that you need to know is that a trust can own real estate, okay? So that's the first thing. Two, a trust can get a mortgage. So just like you can get a mortgage, a trust can also get a mortgage. Just like how you could get a home equity line of credit, a trust can get a home equity line of credit, okay? So what you want to do is you want to put the trust in position to where it's going to, one, acquire these assets, and it's going to be able to cash flow and earn its own money, right? So you want the trust to generate its own income. You don't want to be putting yourself in a position to where you're pouring in your W-2 income into the trust. The trust needs to be able to sustain itself. The only way that the trust is going to sustain itself is by acquiring assets. These assets are the ones that we've been talking about, right? The IULs and the real estate, okay? So now let's talk about it. So one, the trust can qualify for a mortgage. All it has to do is provide tax returns or bank statements, okay? So two, the types of mortgage that we like is real estate investing mortgages, okay? So those are called DSCRs, which is debt service coverage ratio loans, okay? So usually, typically with a DSCR, you can get up to 80% of the purchase price, right? So let's just say that you're buying a house for $100,000, right? So from this house that you're buying, you can get a DSCR loan for $80,000. So now you have $20,000 left, right? Or 20% of that down payment that's required in order for you to acquire this property. So where are you going to get that money from? Well, rewind. Remember, we said earlier that you could build business credit with the business trust. Well, what you want to do is you want to be able to leverage those credit cards and lines of credit that you're going to acquire with the business trust in order to be able to leverage that credit, pull or strip that money, right, from that credit card to use it for the down payment. So let's just say that you got a credit card with $50,000 in it. What you want to do is you want to pull out that $50,000 from that credit card. And the first thing that you want to do is you want to funnel that money into your IUL policy. So now your cash value went up by $50,000. You're going to request a loan, right? And now you're going to request a loan, and let's just say that the company is going to give you $48,000. They just direct deposited $48,000 back into your bank account. Now that $50,000 is working for you in your IUL policy, but now you're going to use it for a down payment for real estate, okay? So what you're going to do is one, you're going to get the 80% from the DSCR loan, and then now you're going to get your 20% from the money that you pulled out of your business credit card. So that means that you just acquired this rental property, right, for 100% down, which means it was zero down for you. It was zero down, 0% of your own money that you used, right? And it's 100% funding that you got between a mortgage and a credit card, okay? And so now this property is going to be cash flowing. So where's that cash flow going to go, right? So let's just say it's cash flowing $3,000 a month, right? So now this cash flow is going to go straight into your IUL policy. Your cash value is going to go up by that $3,000. You're going to borrow a portion of it out, and you're going to pay your business credit card and your mortgage, and then the leftovers is going to be put into your trust as income, okay? So that is the position that you want to put yourself in so that you are able to build wealth the right way, utilizing a trust, utilizing these IUL policies, utilizing real estate as assets, okay? So let's move on to the next slide. So what I want you to do is I want you to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. And I'm going to say that again because it's so profound. You need to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. That is how we define stewardship, you guys, okay? Stewardship is where you're being a good steward of your assets, where you're controlling and managing these assets, where you're directing them in the right way so that they can grow and evolve and multiply, okay? And so that is what you want to be operating in. You want to be operating in stewardship versus ownership, okay? So ownership is the way that you're operating now. You are operating in ownership because you are, one, the proud owner of your property, right? And so you're walking around here letting everybody know that you're the owner of that property, right? Which is cute, but that's not going to help you with the generational wealth that you're trying to create, right? So you need to get out of the mindset of ownership, because you have to understand one thing. This property that you own, that's in your personal name right now, right? What you truly want, right, is you need to understand this. if you didn't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there. So that house is going to outlive you. So what you truly, 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 truly want is control over that asset while you're living. I'm going to say it again. What you really want is to be able to control that house while you're living. And so you can obtain that with a trust, because the trust is going to be the owner and you're going to be the controller of that house. So you have to understand this. If you didn't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there. That house is not going anywhere. Okay, so you might as well protect it and ensure that your children get it. Okay, so how do you actually transfer wealth? That's one thing that a lot of us are not asking ourselves, right? We're not asking ourselves, how am I going to protect my wealth? How am I going to transfer my wealth? How am I going to preserve my wealth? So this is how you're going to actually transfer your wealth, guys. So with a trust, right? When you set up a trust, the trust is actually going to generate trust certificate units. Those are called TCUs. TCUs are just like stock certificates. So you know how stock certificates represent ownership in a company? Well, TCUs represents beneficial interest in a trust. So that means that if you, let's just say that the trust, has $1 million, right? And so it has these 100 TCUs, which represents 100% of beneficial interest. If you have 5 beneficiaries, right? And you want to distribute equally the TCUs, that means that you're going to give everybody 20 TCUs. So let's just say I'm one of your beneficiaries, right? So you give me 20 TCUs. So that means that my 20 TCUs is representing 20% of the whole net worth of the trust estate. So if the trust is worth $1 million, then my beneficial interest is equivalent to $200,000, okay? So now this becomes important when the trust expires. Why? Because all of those assets go to the beneficiaries or the trust certificate unit holders, okay? So what we're talking about here is that if the trust was to be dissolved tomorrow and it has the $1 million, that means I'm going to get a check for $200,000 because I have 20 TCUs, okay? So that's it with TCUs. Now let's move on to the next one, which is preservation. So preservation is so important, you guys, because we are walking around here talking about we building generational wealth, but we don't have the tools in order to build generational wealth. So you cannot be walking around here talking about you're building generational wealth if you don't have a trust and if you don't have a cash value life insurance policy. Those are the 2 tools that you need in order to build generational wealth. So how many times have we seen it to where you got athletes, you have celebrities, actors, actresses, famous families that their wealth either disappears while they're living or it doesn't even last the second or third generation. We've seen it so many times. Why? Because these, celebrities, they don't have the tools, right? They don't have a trust. They don't have cash value life insurance policies. So those are the 2 tools that you need for preservation. So let's talk about it, right? Because nobody's walking around here talking about how am I going to make sure that my wealth is being preserved for 10 generations, right? That's the whole concept of generational wealth. So this is the way that it works, right? Your trust that you're going to create, your trust estate has many assets. It has a house, and this house has homeowners insurance. It has a car, and this car has, vehicle insurance, automobile insurance, right? And those are assets, right? And so it also has what we call human assets, which is you, right? You are a human asset inside of the trust. You are what we call human capital, right? And so you are the most important person in the trust. You are the trustee. You're the person who's operating the trust every single day. And so if anything happens to you, the trust is going to be devastated. The trust is going to experience a loss. So what happens is the trust also needs to insure you as a human asset. So the trust is going to insure you. So you are going to have a index universal life insurance policy, right? And so now the trust is going to insure you, your co-trustees, your beneficiaries, and any future beneficiaries. Why? Because just like I said, if anything were to happen to you, the trust is experiencing a loss, and so the trust needs to be compensated for that loss. So the trust is going to be the owner of the policy, the payer of the premiums, and the beneficiary. So if you didn't wake up tomorrow, and let's just say you have a death benefit of $3 million, that $3 million is going to go to the trust fund, okay? And so now the trust is going to be replenished with $3 million, you guys, okay? Because that death benefit went straight to the trust fund, okay? So that is what it looks like, right? And so now we said, right, that the trust is going to insure every single human asset, right? So you are a human asset. If you have a co-trustee, that person is a human asset. If you have a beneficiary, those beneficiaries are human assets, and all of the future beneficiaries. So let's just say that there's a baby being born into the trust, right? That baby is called a trust fund baby, right? So we need to normalize trust fund babies in our community, right? So when a baby is being born into a trust estate, the trust is going to take out an IUL policy on that baby. Okay, so once that baby is 30 days old, the trust is going to take out a policy on that baby. Okay, and so now what's going to happen is the trust is going to pay the premiums on that policy, okay? So the baby is the insured, the trust is the owner, the payer of the policy, and the beneficiary, okay? So now the trust is paying into that IUL, into that cash value. That cash value is growing and compounding and growing and compounding and growing and compounding, right? So let's just say fast forward into the future, this trust fund baby is now 18 years old. What happens when they're 18 years old? They go to college, so they have tuition, right? They have dorms and housing, and they need their first car, right? So let's just say that this trust fund baby needs their first car, right? So normally they can definitely go to the dealership. They can go to the dealership and they can, sign up for an auto loan, and they can, get a loan for $30,000 so that they could purchase their first car, pull their credit, start paying, $1,000 a month for this car, right? So that's easy. That's what they can do. That's the normal process. But with that process, they're paying, high interest to the dealership. Or what their alternative is, because they're a trust fund baby, they can go to the trust and they can request a loan from the trust, right? And so let's just say that this trust fund baby went to the trust and said, I need a loan for $30,000. Well, the trustee is going to actually write a check for $30,000 and hand it to that beneficiary, right? With a promissory note. And now the beneficiary is saying, I promise to pay you back the $30,000 plus 2% interest. And so now that beneficiary starts giving the trust $300 a month, right? So now the trust is actually earning a little bit of interest and getting, you know, $300 a month, okay? So that is a win-win situation for the trust and the beneficiary, right? So let's just say that a year into the future, that beneficiary decides to default on that loan and doesn't want to pay the trust the $300 a month anymore. Well, this was actually a risk-free loan. Why? Because the money did not come from the trust fund. The money actually came from the trust fund baby's life insurance policy. And so what happened was the trustee, once that trust fund baby requested a loan for $30,000, the trustee contacted the insurance company and requested a loan from the insurance company to actually get the $30,000. So they looked at the cash value, right? Obviously, they collateralized it and they issued out a direct deposit into the trust fund for the $30,000. And then the trustee wrote the check and gave it to the beneficiary for the $30,000. So it was actually a risk-free loan because the money came from the life insurance company's reserves, from their money. And that money does not need to be paid back because it was a loan, and that loan is going to be deducted from the beneficiary's death benefit. So that means that when that trust fund baby expires, right, their $5 million death benefit, that $30,000 is going to come out of that $5 million. And then whatever is left over for that death benefit is going to go straight to the trust fund. And that loan is going to then be, you know, is going to then be good, right? So that is what the process looks like when you are preserving wealth. That is why I told you, you need the tools in order to preserve the wealth. You need the trust and you need the cash value life insurance policies, because those death benefits, right, go straight to the trust fund. The beneficiaries then get to, you know, reap the rewards of being able to benefit from them, but it's putting you in a position to where you get to control that money from the grave, right? So let's move on, you guys. So these are the books that I recommend. I recommend What Would the Rockefellers Do? That is a really good book that teaches you guys about how to use trust and insurance policies together. Next is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. It teaches you about trusteeship. Next is The Family Wealth. It teaches you how to actually operate your family like a business, so that you can establish a family office, right? That's what a lot of us need to be doing, right? You are the CEO of your family, so you need to be operating that way. And then the last one is The Complete Book of Trust, which teaches you about the different types of trust. You guys remember I told you there's hundreds of different types of trust, okay? So what I want to do is I want to show you a quick little video about an individual that took action on the information that I shared with you guys tonight and became a trustee.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while. And, you know, there are a number of people offering trust these days. And, you know, I guess that's the big thing, you know, don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions, things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. I definitely will recommend you to others.
All right, guys. So take action on the information that I shared with you guys tonight, because it could be your new form of doing business, you guys, and making profit. It could solve a lot of your problems dealing with protecting your assets and with saving on taxes, okay? So you want to treat this like a big business, you guys, like a Google and Amazon or Microsoft, right? You don't want to treat this like no small mom and pop shop, okay? So with that being said, let's work together, you guys. So I do have a course where I teach you step by step all of this information. So you have three options here. The first one is do it yourself. So with the do-it-yourself option, this is a course where it's pre-recorded. So you get 43 video modules, and in the modules, I teach you how to set up the 3 trusts that I talked about in this presentation. So you get the business trust, you get the private family trust, and you get the tax-exempt nonprofit trust, okay? And so what happens is you will watch the video, and then you'll download the trust indenture, the template, and then you'll start customizing it for your specific business or, you know, your family, okay? So you do get lifetime access to the course. You also get resources and ebooks. So the books that I just mentioned in the previous slide, you do get them in the electronic version here in the course. Some of those books have a price tag of over $800. So you definitely want to be able to get access to that in the course. Then we have resources for you. So the resources are that we provide you with all of the templates that you're going to need in order to actually operate your trust. So for example, if you want to transfer your house, then we give you the quick claim deed. If you want to change the ownership of your business, then we give you the business purchase agreements and show you how to make the changes with the Secretary of State. If you want to file your taxes, we show you how to do the 1041s, right? So anything and everything that you need is inside of the course, but we also have a private Facebook community and a private Telegram chat. So that is where you get exposure to the other trustees in our community that have been operating the trust for years now, okay? So you get to network with like-minded individuals that are inside of the community. Some of them are in your own city and state, right? And so the course, like I said, you get lifetime access to it. The course is only $997, and that is if you want to do it yourself. The second option is done with you. With Done With You, we set it up in a workshop style setting. So it is a series of 5 group Zoom calls. So we're going to be on Zoom together like how we are now. And it's Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do it every 4 weeks. The next workshop is October 28th to November 1st, okay? And so on Monday, we set up the business trust together. So what I do is I break down every single paragraph of the trust. So for example, the business trust has 51 pages. So I will break down every single paragraph of the 51 pages, and then we'll dive into Q&A. And so it's so, you know, it's so profound to be in that space, in place with other like-minded people, because they're asking questions, you know, to information that you didn't even know that you wanted to know, right? And then they start to piggyback off of each other, and you get to actually retain more information and knowledge. So that's Monday. Tuesday, we set up the private family trust together, and then we dive into Q&A. Wednesday, we set up the tax exempt trust together, and then I show you how to get your tax exempt EIN number with the IRS, and I show you how to become ordained ministers if that's what you want to do for your trust. And then we dive into Q&A. On Thursday, we focus on getting the business trust EIN. I show you how to do board meetings for your trust, how to fill out promissory notes so that you can document how much you're going to fund the trust with. And then I have a guest speaker who comes in and teaches about business credit and business funding so that you can use OPM, other people's money, in order to get the funding that you need for your trust estate, you guys, so that you can get those assets. And then we dive into Q&A. And then on Friday, which is the last day of the workshop, we focus on transferring assets. So the first asset that we focus on is real estate. And I show you how to do the quick claim deeds with the I show you how to do the quitclaim deeds so that you can deed over the property from your personal name into the name of the trust and where to record it. So you want to record it with the county recorder's office. Then we dive into transferring your vehicles. So I'll show you how to do the bill of sale so that you guys can submit it with the DMV. And then we focus on your businesses. So I'll show you how to do the business purchase agreement so that you can document that the liability is going to be on the business trust and is no longer on yourself. And then how to do an amendment with the Secretary of State so that you can remove yourself as the authorized member and add the business trust. And then the last thing we do is we learn about infinite banking, where I have a specialist who comes in. She has been in the insurance industry for over 14 years. So she comes in and teaches you guys how to eliminate your debt and how to build wealth with the cash value life insurance policies, specifically the IULs, and how to have the trust be the owner of the policy, be the payer of the premiums, and also be the beneficiary, okay? So that is the workshop. You get lifetime access to the workshop. So that means that every single 4 weeks that we do a workshop, you get to dive right in. So you get to go in November, December, October, January, February, March, all of these months, right? Which is good because you want to definitely get into the workshops as often as possible to be able to retain the information. But you still get access to the course as well as to the Facebook community and the Telegram chats, the resources, the ebooks. But you get that sense of security that, one, we're going to hold you accountable. We're going to make sure that you get the stuff done. So the following week after the workshop, you're going to book your one-on-one with me, and I'll be able to review all of your docs before you print them and get them notarized. So the workshop is only $2,500. The next option is do it one-on-one, where we do private sessions. So it's just going to be me and you on a private Zoom call. And that's for individuals who have multiple businesses, multiple assets, or they have, very strict schedules where they need that individualized support, but they also need extended support. So we set up all three of your trusts, but then we dive more into different investments for your trust estate. So you get individualized support and extended support, but you still get access to the workshops and the courses, the community, the chat, the ebooks, everything. So the private sessions are only 10,000. So that is it, you guys. So you guys can go to, you guys can go to the website. So it's wealthytrustee.com. You can email us, you can text this number that you see on the screen, or you can call the number that you see on the screen. You can also visit us on social media. So what I want to do is I want to show you guys what the course looks like. I also want to show you a sample of what a template for a trust looks like. And for the people who are on the call, what I want to do is I want to offer you guys 20% off. So if you guys sign up for the course in the next 48 hours, then you can enjoy 20% off. All you have to use is the discount code TRUST20, right? Trust and then the number 20 on the website, and then you'll be able to enjoy 20% off, you guys. So let me show you what a trust looks like. So this is one of the trust templates that we use. And so what I want you to see is that everything that you see in red is what you're going to be customizing. So like I said, right, I break down every single paragraph of the trust. So this is just an example of one of the trust indentures that we use and that we customize for our business, our family, our organization, okay? So this trust indenture is over 60 pages, and these are all the rules and regulations, or what we call provisions, that's going to protect your assets and prevent you from, from somebody trying to seize your assets. So now I want to show you what the program looks like, guys. So this is the course. Like I said, it has 43 video modules, and when you enroll into the program, you're going to get your login credentials and you'll have access to this course. So what you get inside of the course is after the introduction, you get to learn about trust entities. So you learn what is a trust, and then the different parties involved: the grantor, the trustees, the beneficiaries, the successors, protectors, the benefits of a trust, and the different types of trust. And then after that, we dive into the 3 specific trusts that come with the program. So you get access to the 508 tax exempt trust. So we break down through the declaration, the bylaws, the articles, and then how to apply for the EIN. And then we dive into the private family trust. So we break down the declaration, the bylaws, how to apply for the EIN. And then we do the same thing with the business trust. And then we go into tax strategies. So you learn how to operate tax exempt, how to apply for this status, a distributable net income, things of that nature. And then we go into asset protection. So the first thing you want to do is take an inventory of your assets so you know what assets are going to go inside the trust and what assets are going to remain out of the trust. And then we show you how to create a bank account, a brokerage account, how to transfer your house into the trust, your cars, your insurance policies, your businesses, and how to have board meetings. And then we go into wealth creation, where you learn how to build credit with your business trust, how to invest in the stock market, and how to do infinite banking with the insurance policies. Then you learn about the legacy crest and how to create that for your family trust. And then we dive into resources, where you get all the resources that you need and all of the ebooks that we promised you. So with that being said, that is it, you guys. That's all I have for you for tonight. Thank you for rocking with me for the last 2 hours. So I want to open up the floor for Q&A. If you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and ask me. So I see Ramona has a question. Ramona, do you have a question? You're on mute.
Okay, I got it all. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay. How you doing? You look so beautiful always. So, but anyway, you're welcome. All right. So my question is, okay. All right. The beneficiary and the protector, right? They all there to. The protector is there to protect the assets for the beneficiary, right? But the beneficiary is supposed to have a record of it, you know, legally. They're supposed to have a record of the trust, right? But the thing is, what tripped me out, it was just like, wait, these people can sue me, right, for feeling some type of way. And it's like, I'm creating this for my generational wealth, and I want you, whoever, to benefit off of this. You understand? When I go, not for you to feel some type of way or for something you probably not even doing anything with, but you know, getting greedy and decide to come and sue me. How can you stop that from happening? Because
well,
this is
we have it inside of the trust indenture that if the beneficiary decides to sue you, so it could be a number of reasons, but the number one reason would be because the beneficiary, they would want to sue the trust to terminate the trust so that they can get their money, right? Because it's under control. And so we have it inside of one of the provisions to protect this from happening is if the beneficiary decides to initiate a lawsuit to terminate the trust, then they're automatically removed from the trust.
Oh, thank you, God. Thank you. That's all I had.
Yeah.
I was stressing out. I was like, how is this working out? I'm like, no, they're gonna come against me.
They'll try it.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. All right. Thank you, Ramona. Next we have Stacy.
Hi, thank you for sharing this wonderful information with all of us. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
So here goes my question. I had it up here. So I'm wondering if I'm a good candidate for trust right now, because right now I literally have no income. I don't know if I'm going to have income anytime in the near future either. Oh crap, like walking through. What I'm interested in right now is the 4X, because it seems to be able to help me maybe make an income.
Oh, for sure.
I do not own a home. I do not own a home. I live with my parents right now, and I do have access to about $30,000 in cash. So, and I don't have a life insurance. So,
so you don't have any assets, because a lot of the people that are interested. So with the Forex, right, that's a brokerage account, and so you can actually have that brokerage account in the name of the trust. so that you can protect that income that you're going to be generating from your brokerage account. So what you want to do is, if you don't have any income, you can definitely start there, because you'll start generating income day one. And then once you've built up enough capital, then you can go ahead and open up or create your trust, and then you can transfer your assets that you start acquiring into the trust. But if you don't have any assets, that doesn't mean that you don't qualify. You definitely want to set up a trust first, because the trust is going to then acquire these assets, right? Or be the owner of assets ultimately. So, but if you want to do it where you do, step one, step two, step three, then a lot of people want to generate income first, and then set up a trust to protect the income and the assets.
Okay, so if I did like a Forex account, I could transfer it later into a trust?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
You're so welcome, Stacy. Thank you. Next, we have Ron. Ron, are you there? All right, next we're gonna go to Diana, and then we'll come back to Ron. Ron, you're on mute. All right, hi, Diana.
Hi.
How are
Hi.
you?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this wonderful information. My
Thank you.
question is, does your house have to be paid for before you can transfer it into a trust?
It doesn't. So right now today, even though you have a mortgage puts a lien on the property, but you are the legitimate owner of that property. And so you can gift that property into the trust and pretty much transfer the ownership into the name of the trust. Your mortgage is going to remain intact. So it's going to remain on your credit, and then you can continue to make the mortgage payment. So typically what you want to do is you want to have the trust make the mortgage payments, since the trust is now the owner of the property. So the trust is going to have the financial responsibility of being able to continue those mortgage payments.
With the gifting letter, I mean, how do you gift?
Oh yeah, so you have to document it on the quitclaim deed. So on the
Oh,
deed,
okay.
you're putting that you are gifting the property to the trust.
Okay. The second question is, okay, if your trustee is in another state, how do you get the signature for opening the bank account?
Yeah, so they have to go to their local branch. So they'll just make an appointment to go. So for example, if you're using, like, let's just say you're using an online bank like Ally Bank, then it'll be easier because they'll be able to communicate online. But if you're using like a local bank where it's going to require them to go inside the branch, then they have to have that bank, in their state. So you want to choose a bank that you're able to do that. So not every single bank is in every single state. So just choose a bank that is in both your state and the co-trustee state.
Okay, so the trustee that's in the other state would have to go to their bank?
Yeah, would have to go to their local branch. So the same bank, but their local branch. But it only takes one trustee to open up a bank account. But if you want them to, to have privileges over that bank account, then they're gonna have to go into, into one of the branches for wherever you decided to set up the account.
Oh, okay. And from that point, they will tell you what to do, their procedure on what to do,
Yes,
on how to
exactly.
do it.
Yes, all you have to do is you have to bring a certificate of trust, the EIN, and then you have to bring proof that you're the trustee. So your name is going to be on the certificate, but then you have to provide them with identification, and then they are able to open up the account for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
so welcome, Miss Diana. Thank you for being here. All right, next we're going to go back to Ron. Ron, are you available? You were on mute. All right. So next we're going to go to R. Martinez. Martinez?
Hi, yes. Hi, yes, I'm here. Hi, thank you, Christina.
Okay,
I
awesome.
have, I have, I have a question. My daughter just started working. She's only 17. I would like to actually do a trust for her. Does she need to be 18 to be able to have a trust done for her?
No, so she does have to be at least 18 in order for her to be the trustee. But if you're going to be the trustee and have her be the beneficiary, then she'll be able to be a minor and be the beneficiary. And then once she turns 18, she can be transferred into a trustee position.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. That was my question. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next we have Willie.
Good evening. Thank you so much for your information. I've been a part of a trust company, and the way that you have explained is phenomenal.
Thank you, Willie.
We
I appreciate that.
appreciate your gift. So
much.
my question is, how do you feel about co-trustees? In other words, existing at the same time. Is that a problem?
Yeah, no, it's
Or
not. I mean, it's just the same thing as running a business with two partners. It's not a problem at all. So, trustees can act independently, so they can bind the trust in various different things like credit cards, loans, houses, things like that. So you just want to appoint. So if you're setting up the trust, you're going to be the first trustee, and then you're going to appoint a co-trustee. That co-trustee is going to be the secondary trustee. And so you just want to make sure that you're putting someone else in power that's actually going to, be operating the trust legally, lawfully, and not negligent. So you just want to make sure that person qualifies.
awesome. So I had one other question about the trustee. So as it pertains to the successor trustee, typically what I see happen is that as we get older, we have close friends or family members that die off, and then not realizing that you might have two successors. But then what happens when you don't have the last presiding trustee then dies, and then now the trust has no trustee? What happens then?
Yeah, so if the trust has no trustee and no successor that has been appointed. Yeah, so unfortunately, that's something that we want to avoid, right? So unfortunately, what happens is the beneficiaries then have to take the trust to court in order for there to be a court-appointed trustee, because the trust cannot operate without a trustee. So that's something that we try to avoid, and that's why we put different, that's why we try to appoint a trustee, and then we try to appoint a secondary nominee just in case. And so what we tell our trustees is just to make sure that whoever you appoint, that you're checking in with them annually or every 2 years to ensure that they are still able to serve in that position, because you don't want to put the trust estate in a position to where the beneficiaries have to bring the trust estate to court because there's no fiduciary.
Okay. In that capacity, is it also recommended maybe to have a law firm in a position?
Yeah, absolutely. You can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Willie. All right. Next we have, okay, so Ron, are you available? Because you've been on mute for a while and I know that your hand was up. Ron N. All right. Next we're going to go to Jeanette.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
This has been great. I missed the last one the other day and I was sad. So anyway,
Oh,
my
I'm so
question
glad to hear
is,
that.
if let's just say someone had like 10K in a high yield savings account, and it was like 5%. So they're like $500 a month or a year, sorry. What if they are getting that money and as a dividend, basically, off of the high yield? How can we avoid paying taxes on that? Or that's my question. I don't have a high yield account yet. So I don't want to get it and start racking up dividends and having to pay taxes on that.
Yeah,
So,
okay. So your capital gains, what you can do is you can put it inside. So these types of investment accounts, like high yields or brokerage accounts, even that earn dividends and stuff like that, you can put it into the name of the trust, right? So you can set it up and it's in the trust name. And now that those capital gains can go inside of the trust account, right? But it doesn't mean that you have to pay taxes. If you allow that money to just sit inside of the trust and you don't distribute it, then it doesn't trigger a taxable event for you to have to pay taxes on it. So that's one way. The other way is by you putting it into the tax exempt trust, because then you still are not going to be required to have to pay taxes on it. So those are two different strategies that you can use, and a lot of people, they'll use it also for like crypto and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you. I was concerned about which trust to put it in, the family or the tax exempt. So you kind of clarified that for me. So
Okay.
thank you.
Awesome, you're welcome. Thank you. All right, next we have Alan.
Good evening. How are you?
Great, how are you?
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for your, for this lovely session. I just had one question. What is can the beneficiary of the family trust be the children or a corporation?
Yeah, it could be an entity or it could be living people, yes.
Okay. I think that was it.
All
Okay,
right.
perfect. Thank you.
Awesome, you're welcome. All right, next we have Ramona.
Okay, thank you again. All right. The question I have is that, okay, the successor, I think that's what it's called. I want to put my son, which is he's 16, but so I know that I'm believing that, he has to be 18. But the thing is, like, no one foresees themselves not waking up the next day. So, but we can, anyway. So with that being said, is that I was thinking, like, is there a way to put him as a assessor for when he turns 18 in some type of way? Or what happens wait, first I gotta know if he can, and if he could, if I put him before he's 18 some type of way, I'm not sure. If so, how does that work? Like, how does it work if I want him to be the next trustee after me? But right
Yeah,
now he's only 16.
So when you are appointing them in that specific position, they have to be qualified at that time. So if he's underage, then he cannot be appointed as a successor. He has to wait until he's 18 to be appointed a successor.
Okay, so say if I chose somebody for temporary, because my main goal is to have my son, what steps would I take to do that once he turned 18? I could just have a board meeting or something like that and say, instead of this person, it's going to be this person.
Yeah, so you can change the appointment. So you can do an amendment and you can remove the current successor, because those things change all the time. Even if the successor comes and tells you, hey, I can't be the successor anymore, you have to remove them, right?
Right.
And then you have to list the new successor. So you will remove that person and you will list the new successor, which is your son, once he's of age.
All right. Thank you so much. That's all I needed.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next, we have Sal Patel. How are you?
All right. Thank you, Christina.
Thank
You've been
you.
great. I learned a lot in 2 hours and like I could say like maybe last year or 2 years or
Thank
last
you.
5 years. That was great information. I have a question about the life insurance policy.
Yes.
What's the amount, or how much is it adequate, or what is there enough, or who dictates it, and how do we
Yeah, that's
come up with that number?
really good question. So you structure it the way that you want. So you will let them know how much you want to put in per month. and then they'll build the policy. So the policies are customized, it's specifically for you. Your policy and my policy are not the same policy. So you would tell them, hey, I want to put $500 a month into this policy, and then they'll structure it that way so that you could be, you could be putting in your premiums around that certain amount.
I see. Okay. The trust protector.
Yes.
This person who is going to be what happens if that person is not available, or how we are trying to protect ourselves? What if they get into a jam somewhere and then they're listed on this trust?
Yeah, so the trust protector is there to protect the beneficiaries from the trustee in the event that the trustees are grossly negligent or dealing illegally or unlawfully. So the trust protector, they are going to be nominated by other board members. And if they are not able to act in their capacity, they can nominate a successor protector. And then that person will take over. If they're not able to, if the successor protector is not able to perform their duties, then they would have a second nominee. If they don't have a second nominee, then it'll go back to the board of trustees to be able to appoint someone else.
Okay, great. And the tax exempt trust. So we can we make donations to the temples or something from writing a check from there?
Yeah, you said donations from where?
From the tax exempt.
You can
the tax exempt the last trust that you mentioned.
Yeah, you can receive donations and then you can also give donations. Yes.
We can give donations, and those are going to be tax free or something like that, right?
Yep. Yep, they're exempt.
Tax exempt. All right. Yep. Perfect. Thank you very much. That's great. Yep.
You're so welcome, Sal. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Next we have Immaculate.
Hi, Miss Chrissy. Fine, thank you. I wanted to ask, what are the requirements? Do you have to be a U.S. citizen, to have this kind of things, or?
That's a good question. So the grantor. So one thing is, if you want to get an EIN, the grantor does need to have either a TIN, a social, or an EIN in order to get one for the trust. But ultimately, there's no restrictions to any of the beneficiaries, trustees, or grantors having to be U.S. citizen.
Okay, thank you. And number two, if I live here and then I maybe want to go to live in another country at some other time, I can still operate the trust here, no problem, or overseas?
Yeah, you can still operate the trust here. The trust is a domestic trust, so it's for the United States and U.S. territories. So this trust, you wouldn't be able to go operate it in other countries, just because you're not familiar with their government and their laws. But if you're living, let's just say you're living in Mexico, but you want to continue to operate this trust here because you have properties, investments, and accounts here, you can do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, thank you. Next, we have Charles. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm trying to turn this camera on.
All right.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
All right.
Thank you for how about it? How about it?
Yeah.
Thank you for everything, all your knowledge and your insight. It's a lot, but it's good. It's good information.
Yeah,
Really good information.
It is a lot.
Let me ask you this. For the IUL, what's the max that you can put in at one time?
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I don't know the answer. I don't know. I've seen people put in $1 million. I don't know what the
Got you. Okay.
Yeah, I don't
follow
know.
you.
There is such thing as being over what is the word that they use?
Overfunded.
What is it?
Overfunded. You don't want to reach the MEC.
And how's
Yeah.
that
Oh,
calculated?
yeah. Oh, overfunded, but it's like too much coverage or something. I can't remember the word that they use, but yeah, that's also a thing that Ron is saying, which is you don't want to hit the MEC limit on your policy. Your policy is tax-free until you overfund it and you hit the MEC. The MEC is the modified endowment contract, and then it becomes a taxable. So but that just only goes based off of how you structure it. So if you want to structure it to where you're putting in $1 million, then that's what that's what you have to do from the beginning or the origin of you setting up that policy.
And I know you have a couple of those, don't you?
I do. I have five. I have five, and I'm getting more.
Awesome,
I'm
beautiful.
getting more. I'm young. I'm healthy.
There you go. My
Yeah.
last question, I'm very familiar with Forex trading, right?
Oh yeah. Wait, how everybody know about Forex?
Oh, I've been trading for years. So the account is a PAM account, correct?
Yeah, it is.
What's
Pam.
it yielding like on a yearly basis?
Oh, we just started it. Hold on. I'm so excited. I'm gonna just show you, okay? Hold on. I'm just so excited. One second. Let me just pull it up here, guys. I gotta put in my login. Oh, it's getting hot over here. Let's see here. Okay. So let me get back to Zoom wherever you guys are. Okay, there we go. Okay. So this is the statistics. So I'm just gonna go right here. So my fund is called Pay Yourself First. Who would have thought of that, right? And so far we've yielded 66.26%. And this is like within the last like 9 weeks.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we not doing bad.
Okay.
So
Okay.
now let me ask you, is the bank giving you 66%?
Oh, of course not.
And
Not at
and
all.
not in 9 weeks?
Not at all.
Okay, that part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate
You're
it.
so welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh,
Oh my
yes.
God, I love talking about this type of stuff. I could just geek out on this stuff all day. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Charles. So next we have Quentin. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. I have a quick question. I do have a trust already,
Hey,
but it
congrats.
is revocable. What would be the process to go through to get uh, that set up under the systems that you just shared?
Oh, okay. I mean, so the revocable trust, the thing is that like with the revocable trust, your assets are not fully protected. So have
Right.
you been using it? Do you have assets that are inside of that trust?
Yes, I do.
Okay, do you want to keep your assets in that trust?
Well, not after learning what I just learned, I don't think I do.
Okay, so then what you would have to do is you would have to set up the irrevocable trust, and then you would just move your assets from the revocable to the irrevocable. So you can move assets from one trust to another trust. And it's just like moving them from your personal name into the trust. So that would be it. So, we help you set up your trust so you can go through our program to get your 3 trusts set up. And then once it's set up, and fund it, then you just want to move the assets over from the trust that you are probably no longer going to operate into the irrevocable trust.
Okay, and in conjunction with the other two that you talked about.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then another thing is you don't want to have all of your assets in one trust, so you might want to divide them into the various different multiple trusts. So if you are running a business or you have investments, you want them in the business trust. If you have personal assets, then you want them in the family trust. And then if you have, nonprofit endeavors, or if you want to benefit from, being exempt from property tax exemptions or things like that, then you'll have it in the in the tax exempt trust.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Clinton. Thank you so much for being here.
All right, thank you.
All right, next we have Ramona. And then I think I have some questions in the chat, and then I will let you guys go.
I think
Ramona?
I accidentally hit it again.
Oh, okay, no problem.
All right, thank you.
All right, next we have Immaculate. Let me see, can you apply?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to find out, I don't know if you alluded to it. Is there a minimum amount to fund the trust?
So usually, the minimum is when you're going to, fund the trust, usually what we do is we'll document that we're funding it with cash and we'll put that cash into the bank account. So the absolute minimum would be anything that has intrinsic value. So it could be as little as $1. It could also, doesn't have to be cash, it could be precious metal, right? A lot of people use silver and gold as ways of funding their trust. But if you're going to open up that bank account and you'll fund it, the bank account also has a minimum. So usually it's like $100, maybe $300, something around there. And so you'll just fund that trust fund with whatever the bank's minimum is as well. So I just want you to consider both of those things.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so next somebody said, if we purchase now, will we have access to the international trust in January? Yes. So you guys, I am working with a partner so that we can make an international trust available inside of the program. So it should be available by Q1 of 2025. So usually, probably sometime around January. So if you guys are in the program, then you guys are automatically grandfathered in and you get access to the international trust. Another thing is if you guys are interested in getting the 20% off, go to our website, wealthytrustee.com, and use the discount code TRUST20. If you do not have like the entire amount to enroll into the program, but you still want to secure the discount, you can actually put a deposit down for $200, and then that will secure your position so that you can enjoy the discount of the 20% off. So the link is in the chat. So the link to our website and the link to the deposit is inside of the chat, you guys. And the replay is going to be available on YouTube. So we are live streaming on YouTube right now. So you guys can head over to our YouTube channel, definitely subscribe, and you'll be able to watch the entire replay just in case you wanted to take notes or anything like that. Let's see here. Somebody asked, can you apply this if you have a felony? Yeah. So even if you have a criminal record, you can still get a trust and operate as a trustee. So can you apply these methods if you are paying on your house and your car? So that's a good question. So you can still have a mortgage for a house, but not for a car. So your car has a lien holder, which is the bank. And so the lien holder has the title. You don't have the title to the vehicle. And so you need the title to the vehicle, which means that that vehicle needs to be paid off in order for you to retitle that vehicle into the name of the trust. The only other way of doing this without paying off the vehicle is to refinance the vehicle into the trust. So meaning the trust will now get a car loan and you will refinance that car into the car loan that's in the name of the trust. And then that title is going to be automatically retitled into the name of the trust. But if the car is not paid off, then you have to wait until you pay it off in order to put it into the trust. Willie, you have a question?
Yes, one last question. Thank you. Is a person who has filed bankruptcy precluded from being a trustee?
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Somebody asked, is it necessary to have a bank account for the FBO, private family and business, or just the business? It is necessary. Okay, so you're not required to set up a bank account for your trust. but you have to understand that you don't want to put yourself in a position to where you're commingling funds. So you do want to set up a separate bank account for each individual trust, just in case you're operating these trusts, you don't want to mix and mingle these funds. So I highly recommend that you set up separate accounts for the various different trusts that you're setting up. And let me see here. Once you hit 60, they make you take a physical to get IUL before 60. So to get the IUL, you do have to take a medical exam, and then that is going to determine if you are approved or if your application is denied. And then they're also going to grade you like an A, B, or C for the type of premium or policy that you qualify for based on your health. So, but they do still approve you if you have any pre-medical conditions like diabetes or history of cancer. You can still get approved for an IUL with those type of conditions. Where can I get an IUL? So we have an internal team that will set you up with the IULs. So if you look at the link, it says, let me see, where is it? It says, I'm gonna repost it here. Book a call with our insurance partner and they will be able to set you up with the IULs and they'll meet with you. Okay, so here is the link. Go ahead and click on that and book a call with our IUL person. Can you get an IUL if you have a felony? Yes. So you don't need to have like a clean record or anything like that. I don't even think that they check your credit. I think some carriers do, but really like credit or criminal background or anything like that, those are not factors. So the number one a real factor is your medical, because they're insuring your life. And if you have cancer today, they're like, okay, well, your life expectancy, we don't know which direction, so we're not going to insure you. So let's see, have you purchased a program with you and haven't gotten started? How long is it good for? You have lifetime access to the program, so it's good forever. Can you fund your trust with a 1099 or W-2 pay? Yeah, you can. You can fund your trust with your payment from your employer. Can you join the Forex team? Need 66. Jeff said, can I join the Forex team? Yeah. Let me put the link in the chat if anybody's interested in my pay yourself first fund, then you can definitely get on board with that. So it is a PAM account. So the way that it works is you are going to open up a brokerage account. If you have a trust, put it into the name of your trust, okay? The brokerage is overseas, so they're based in Europe. And we have a trader. He has 10 years of experience. He's based in Houston, Texas. And the way that it works is you're going to open up a PAM account and you're going to link it to our master account. So our master account is the account that is being traded by our professional trader. And we do double-digit returns, guys. So we do like probably typically around 20% a month. So just, give or take. But we're not guaranteeing that it's going to be like that consistently every single month. But so far in the last 9 weeks, it has been 66%, which is good because the bank is giving you 0.000. So in order for you to start with this fund, you need at least $1,000. So you're just gonna create your account, get it approved. So you have to give them like your license and proof of address. Once it's approved, you deposit the $1,000, then you link it to our master account. Our master account is pay yourself first. And then from there, your account is going to start trading either the same day or the next business day, just depending on on what time you do your deposit. So if you do your deposit after the trader has traded, then your account will start trading the next business day. If you do your deposit before the trader has traded for that day, then you will you'll receive you'll get into the trade. So the way that it works is your account mirrors the master account. So the trader doesn't have access to trade everybody's individual account, right? This is like hundreds of people here, right? So he can only trade one account, and all of us are attached to that account. And so because all of us are attached, our money is, pulled together, right? Nobody has access to your money, but it's made available on the master account, and based off of the profits, you get your percentage of your profit. And so we do have a performance fee. The performance fee is 40%. So that means that it's a 60-40 split. So if you make $100 today, then you get to keep 60 of it, and the trader gets 40 of those dollars. So that's how it works, you guys. It's 100% passive. There's nothing that you have to do. You just have to park your money somewhere, and your money makes money for you. So it's a good avenue in order to, start generating income. I will put the link inside of the chat for anyone who's interested. And let me know if there's any other questions. If not, we are going to wrap up this session. Let's see.
One more question.
Yeah.
Do you how about if you had child support, would that bother you in any way with the trust? With a trust?
No, that's in your personal name. So
Okay.
whatever assets that you have is inside of the trust is not going to affect the child support.
Thank you so much. You're amazing.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay, let me see. Hold on a second. Let's see. Okay, where's my Zoom? I gotta find it. I lost you guys. Okay, there it is. Okay, guys, I put the link in the chat. So the replay is available on YouTube. So if you go to, let me go ahead and put that link in the chat for you guys, the YouTube. So go look us up on YouTube, definitely subscribe. You'll learn a lot, and you can watch the whole replay and then send it to a friend, okay? So do a good deed and send this information to a friend so each one teach one. Let me see, I put the Forex link in there, I put the YouTube link in there. Do I need a business to set up a trust? No, you do not need a business. I don't know why a lot of people think this, but no, you do not need an LLC or a corporation or any of those things. So a trust is its own separate entity. It has nothing to do with a business. So you don't need a business in order to set up a trust, okay? Whatever you use your social for, all is connected. The point of the trust is to create separate because it's its own social called an EIN. That's correct, Mandy. So right now we're out here using our name and our social. And so when you set up a trust, now you're going to use the trust name and the EIN. So that you can, be discreet and private and practice what we call obscurity. All right, so I have two more questions here. I have Harry K. Hey, Harry.
Hi, how you doing? I think you kind of like answered my question, because I was getting ready to ask, was it advisable that we join the FX right now, being that it's a passive account? I have money sitting in a IRA that's actually doing nothing. I'm not getting anything for it. So, but being that you said that it's going to be open to being attacked, maybe it's safer staying in the IRA until the trust is created. What do you say?
Yeah, because you're gonna be setting it up in your own personal name, but the thing that I like is that we one, the brokerage is overseas, and then two, you're using cryptocurrency in order to fund it. So, that's one thing that you really don't have to worry about. But I just always tell people, like, when you are having these type of assets like brokerage accounts and you're, generating capital gains and everything like that, you just want it to be in the name of the trust. So, you can either do it two ways. You can set it up in your personal name, start generating money, and then set up the trust and transfer it, or you can just wait until you set up the trust and then create your brokerage account under the name of the trust.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Harry. Next we have Z.
Hello, Christina. How's it going?
Great. How are you, Z?
Good. I wanted to know if I could email you. It was a couple of things that you mentioned, and I'm in the midst of shuffling around here, so I couldn't write it down. So can I send you an email so then
Yeah.
that way you can resend the links because I can't download anything right now.
Not a problem. Don't you worry. I'll send you all the links. Just send me an email. You have my email. You
Uh,
can,
the
you can,
Christina one or the 7 ways?
yeah, info@sevenwaystowealth.com.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, you're so welcome. Thank you, Z. All right, next we have Rita. How are you?
Hi, it's Rita. I have a question. When you get ready to start setting up your trust bank accounts, sometimes like in our court system, when you go in there and you say anything talking about like common law and republic and this, the court reacts like, oh, wait a minute, we got one of these sovereign citizens. Well, do you ever encounter any kind of like that kind of reaction from banks when you see
Yes.
the language of the trust?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
Yeah,
And how do we respond or handle that? Is it a
yeah.
hurdle?
So it just depends on the banks that you're using. That's why I tell everybody to avoid the bigger banks like Wells
Mm-hmm.
Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, because they will ask you for your entire trust indenture, and then they see the language that's inside of the trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
About the unincorporated Republic of the United States and everything like that, and you're operating under common law. So you want to go to banks that are not going to request your entire indenture, and then they won't see that it's a common law, that it's a non-statutory trust. So
Mm-hmm.
all you're going to do is either two things. You're going to provide them with your certificate, or when you go to the bank, you're going to ask them for a certificate of trust and you're just going to fill it out. So
Okay.
yeah, those are the two ways that you will go about doing it, just to move around or be able to navigate through that. Because some people who have provided their indentures, they're like, oh, well, these banks are like, oh, well, we don't deal with, common law trusts, and so we can't, offer you a bank account. So,
Okay. So
it just
so
depends.
so basically I got to make sure I'm going to a bank that is only going to require this certificate of trust.
Yeah, you don't want to give your whole entire trust. You don't want to give your trust to anybody. It's not only the
Yes.
bank, it's the dealerships, it's the
Mm-hmm.
credit unions, it's the real estate companies, it's everybody.
Got
You
it.
don't want to give your trust to anybody. And so if they're asking you for your entire trust indenture, you need to let them know that they are violating your privacy rights.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then outside of that, it shouldn't be any other hurdles.
Correct.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
appreciate that answer.
Smooth sailing.
Yep.
Yeah, so Mandy's like, yeah, they just need proof that that trust exists. Yeah, so it's just a certificate. Um, yeah, so let me see. Any other last questions? So, Adrian said, setting up the trust for my parents' house irrevocable, so he funds the trust with his personal funds every month to pay the bills of the property. So when you put your property into the trust, it now becomes the financial responsibility of the trust. So that mortgage payment, those taxes, those utilities should be coming out of the trust account. So that's why I said you want to put the trust in a position to where it's sustaining itself. But initially, you might have to transfer funds from your W-2 money into the trust account to be able to then pay it from the trust account. Because you want to do everything correctly when it goes to operating the trust. And so if the trust owns the house, you don't want to be paying from your personal bank account. You want to pay from the bank account of the trust. So thank you guys so much for being here. It was a pleasure, being with you guys today, educating you guys on how to set up a trust, how to build wealth the right way. The only thing that I want to tell you is that everyone who is on this call, you guys are generational curse breakers. And now it's time to change the trajectory of your life and of your kids' life. So from today on, you need to be training your children on being trustees, because that is how you're going to build this foundation for the legacy that you're leaving this foundation for the generational wealth that you are here to create, to protect, and to preserve. So with that being said, I'm looking forward to helping you guys, answering any questions that you guys might have. So everyone have a good night, and